All right, I think I figured it out. I don't know what happened. My apologies, but I am back. Epic Lunch and Learn, episode 65. I am solo for the next hour. So definitely all your questions, all your comments are greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. Not sure exactly what is going on, but the show must go on. Show must go on. Hopefully, we can get things sorted out and keep it moving. Keep it moving. So, it was funny. I'm going to start off with something. I was writing down today, like things that you need. When do you need me? When do you need a loan officer to talk about? And I thought about this because I got a call yesterday. I got a call yesterday from a realtor who was telling me about a client that was having issues. Right, she was having issues with her current lender. They were supposed to be closing tomorrow, and obviously that's not going to happen. And hey Dante, can you take a look at the situation? Can you come in and see if you can save the day? And so I said, sure. Here, let me come in. Let me see what I can do. So, after this show, I got some things I got to do and see what I can do. So I'm going to try to help this person out, and I say, when do people need a loan officer? And that's 100% not exactly the theme today, but I thought it definitely triggered me. So I started writing down and jotting down notes of when people need you, and it's all started with the letter D, right? D for Dante. And so I thought it was interesting. So I got when you change a job, you may need a loan officer, right? Changing a job is going to either increase or decrease how much money you make. And so there might be a situation at that point in time where you need to go ahead and look to relocate, basically on a new job, maybe look to upgrade your life, or downsize, depending on a job cut that can potentially happen. So I put the D I decided for changing jobs would be departure, right? Departure of a job. The second one is disability, which is a serious one. Obviously, if you had a stroke, if you had, some, accident, on the way to dropping off my mini-me's today in school. I was driving down the street and there was a huge accident. Airbags popped out and everything. Car looked to be a mess. And if that accident, potentially could disable somebody, that's going to change their situation as far as their income. They'll be forever changed. How many workers out there, especially in the Midwest with the battle and the cold, they're outside. I was talking to another guy this morning, and he's up in O'Hare, at the O'Hare airport. And, he's like, moving the bags from different planes and moving them on the conveyor belt. Man, it's cold outside. And that can, you can stiff back if you're not stretched out properly. That could affect you. So disability is a reason why you would want to call a loan officer. Um, Marriage, and I said, what letter D word would be good for marriage? What do you think it was? I came up with devotion. Devotion. I thought devotion was a good word for marriage, right? You're supposed to be devoted to your partner in crime, your spouse. And so marriage is a situation where you guys would get together and potentially look to, hey, let's come together and let's buy a house, right? That's what a lot of newlyweds do. And things have changed, right? It used to be, what would you say if you had three things? If you said the marriage, the house, and the kids, I think that's was the traditional order, right? You would get married first, get a house, and then have kids. But that's the blurred lines of the new millennium has changed, right? I think it's kids first, house second, then marriage third. I mean, is that the line, or what is the right flow of those things? What is the right sequence of events that are supposed to take place? But I think traditionally, if you go back to the 50s, I think it was marriage, home, then kids. But nowadays, fast forward 70 years has gone by. I think house, baby, marriage. When does the baby come in before the marriage? When does the marriage come first yet? No, no, definitely probably not if we got some stats here. So another one I thought of was deployment. Deployment is another word. That's for veterans, right? I mean, veterans are going to get deployed, they might need to talk to a loan officer. That's the time to speak to a loan officer, see if we can help you out and see what's going on. Just whether it's a refinance, you might be leaving a spouse at home. So I thought that was interesting. Divorce. We had a conversation yesterday, episode 64 with Vince, and he was talking about his client is getting a divorce. So, moving out, I think they're going to sell the home and they're going to move out the house, sell the house, and she's going to get a new house. So a divorce situation, you might want to speak to a loan officer. Diapers, right? Little babies, little ones. I call my kids the mini me's. They're not so little anymore, but that's going to forever change you. Having kids is a situation where you need more space. More space means maybe a bigger home, a new location. So diapers, if babies are on the way, it might be time to think about a house. And even with diapers, you can fast forward as they get bigger and older. They may leave the house, they leave the nest. And when they leave the nest, what do you do when they leave the nest? You may want to downsize, sell your place, depending on, how many people, are actually, living with you. You may want to sell the place. And, if you make enough, you're just going to say, okay, great news. I'm going to go ahead and, just pay cash for the next house. Or you may need some assistance as far as a bridge loan. Yesterday we talked about bridge loans is a really powerful tool for homeowners that have current homes and they're looking to basically buy a new house, but they don't want to have the pressure of having to sell their house first. The bridge loan is basically a cash out refinance that allows them to go ahead, take the equity that they currently have in their current residence, use that as the down payment for their new home, and then sell their house and pay off this new existing loan later. So the bridge loan is definitely a new, it's not really new, but it's very effective. And just to be transparent, it's just something I wasn't 100% familiar with. Maybe if you would have talked to me 7 years ago, but now it's definitely a viable tool. It's expensive. I mean, you pay for the convenience, but it's definitely an opportunity that can really help you so you don't become that contingency buyer, especially in, let's just say affluent situations, affluent areas, I should say, that, may require you to want to be, look your best, right? You want to be a conventional 20% person. You're vying for, this opportunity. You really want to put your best foot forward. Using the bridge loan can be very effective to maneuver. Next one is death. And we unfortunately see this a lot. Death, usually an estate sale of some sort. But death, right now, I'm helping a client out. Her parents passed away earlier this year. Both parents passed away, and she's moving into the property. And she wants to take over the property, and she wants to do some renovations to it. Using a loan officer comes into play. And then finally, degrees. And degrees kind of go with the job. We started off with a departure, but degrees is another opportunity as well where you need to talk to a loan officer. Hey, you're getting your master's degree, you're getting your bachelor's degree, whatever you're getting. It may register a time to reevaluate your situation. More knowledge, more education. A better paying job. And those are situations. So when you break it down, I just went with D's because I'm Dante. So Dante with D's, of course. So departure of a job, which is, virtually changing a job, disability, devotion, which is marriage, deployment, divorce, diapers, death, and degrees. Those are really 8 key areas in your life where you should be having a conversation with your financial team. And a financial team, we've talked about this, probably 20, 30 episodes ago. And so, I always encourage people, YouTube does a great job. They actually store all these episodes on my live portion on the Epic Spotlight channel. So if you go to Epic Spotlight, go into the live section, you can go back and watch some of the episodes. There's some gems in each of these episodes. We're talking, having conversations with, different loan officers. And the beauty is that we're expanding, right? We're talking to different realtors. We've had realtors from Texas. We've had realtors from Florida. We've had loan officers from Michigan. We've had loan officers from, the state of Washington. Obviously, I'm here in Illinois. So we're trying to bring different variety and different concepts to you so we can talk about these strategies because they work very well. The cool thing I like about the mortgage industry versus maybe real estate per se, I know real estate is the sexy part, right? Oh, look at the 2-bed home. Look at the beautiful bathroom. Oh, I love the crown molding, all that good stuff. And that stuff is sexy. It's good to watch. I know a lot of fans are HGTV and doing all that stuff. But I like my part of it because my portion is about the numbers and does it make sense? Is it financially, can you financially afford it? But I impact you in the way of, qualifying. You have to be able to qualify. I had a conversation this morning with an investor as well. And so, I speak to a lot of people every day. Just always remember that. I'm always on the phone talking to somebody. And I was speaking to the investor today, and we're putting together a deal and we're structuring it in a way that, it's got to be a win-win. At the end of the day, the big box banks are the ones that, basically give us the money that we're able to offer you and help you. So we put a strategy together. And then when we put the strategy together, we still got to make sure it qualifies and goes through underwriting. And underwriting has to give us the clear to close. And so we got a clear to close last night for one investor who sees opportunity in taking cash out and buying more property, which is super cool. And then the other one that I was speaking to today was, he's saying, hey, it's wintertime, right? I mean, what's the temperature today? Today is balmy. Ladies and gentlemen, it is balmy in the Midwest, 34 degrees, right? So it's super warm today, comparatively speaking, right? So you don't have to wear your gloves today, right? I tell my kids, hey, put your gloves on. No, it's just fine today. It's not bad. It's crazy how your body adjusts to the temperature. When the temperature every day, I think like last night, it was like 10 and it was windy and it was whipping a little bit. Like you felt like, man, am I wearing pants? Am I wearing shorts right now? Because it was just so cold. And but today, it didn't feel as bad. And you're like, oh, it's not so bad. It's 34 degrees. What do you mean? I don't know how I've stayed here for as long as I've had. I really should be in 70 to 80 degree all day, every day weather. But to each his own. So basically what I was saying is I was talking to this investor and I said, we always have to remember it has to be a win-win. It always has to be a win-win relationship, when we're working with the banks. The banks are here. They're not your friends, right? I mean, I could be your friend. I could be your business confidant, but they're not your friend. They have a product. They're here to make money off the interest. That's why they attach interest to each payment that you make. And let's take a tangent on that. Some people don't understand that, but if you look at it, hey, I got a 30-year fix. Okay, so what does a 30-year fix mean? Well, that means I have 360 payments to make, right? I have 360 payments to make on the mortgage, and that's 360 principal payments to actually pay it off. But what ends up happening is that there's interest that is attached to each of your payments. So so if you have 360 payments, payment one, principal and interest, principal and interest. So there's an interest attached to it. So what you can do, if you could double up the payments, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, if you could double up the payments, you could actually pay it a 30-year mortgage in 15 years. Because 36 divided by 2, if you made 2 principal payments each month, you could actually pay it off in 180 payments, which is 15 years. That would save you 15 years worth of interest. Okay, that's powerful. Always, that would save you hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on what type of loan that you have. So you want to be cognizant of that. You want to be mindful of the power of the loan amortization schedule, how you can pay things off much quicker. Is as quickly as you can pay off the principal is going to put you in a better situation. Okay, no doubt about that. Now, I put some outline together, so I wanted to kind of talk about that. The market feels like someone shook the snow globe a little too hard. Okay. Rates teasing movement, Fed updates looming, buyers waking up from a long nap. Obviously, the Fed are going to, they're meeting, conversing today. They're going to make their big announcement tomorrow. That's the big talk. What are they going to do? The market is actually going, has rates have been going up the last 2 days. Um, maybe there's a surprise looming tomorrow. Maybe I actually was right. I thought they were going to stay flat. That was my gut. But the economists, have said there was a 90% chance of a quarter point change. And that's what the expectation is. So obviously the market rates would go up higher tomorrow if we, hear that there's no quarter point adjustment. So tomorrow is a big day, and we're going to see how it plays out. But there was a little bit of there's just not a lot of news right now, just because of the backlog, that we had because of the government shutdown, to really, decide where are we and where is this market really moving as we get towards the end. So it's kind of interesting in that. Let me see what my buddy wrote me. Marry the term, not the rate. Of course, yeah. You date the rate. You marry the term, not the rate. I like that. So date the rate, marry the house. So he came up with a new one: marry the term and not the rate. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think, overall from an amortization schedule standpoint, and this is what I'm big on, is just recognizing that you're signing up for that amount of payments, whether it's 360, 240, 300, 180, 120. That is your 10, 15, 20, 25-year, 30-year mortgages, but you're just agreeing to pay the principal. You're not agreeing to pay the interest. So if you are able to go ahead and focus on paying the actual principals and doubling up on payments. I mean, sometimes if I have a bonus check or a big month, I might pay 4 principal payments. My wife always gets mad at me. Why are you putting all this extra money? I'm trying to pay this sucker off. I'm trying to actually do the 25-year term. I'm trying to save hundreds of thousands of dollars on interest. I'm going to prepay these things. And that's what's so important. It's those concepts. People, they get these loan amortization schedules. They used to not, I felt like they used to not have them at closing, but now they do. They're in everyone's closing package. But you get this, big, thick package at the time of closing, right? And you put it in, your back seat, you drive off, you're happy. And then you're like, okay, I know these are important documents. And then you put them somewhere. And then eventually within 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they're gone. You have no idea, as if they had legs themselves and they walked out the door. You have no idea where you've put your closing package, and let alone you'll never open it again, right? The only time you open it up is if you're going to refinance, right? And then your loan officer says, I need a copy of your note. You got a copy of your note, and then all of a sudden you got to go through, which one is the note? The one that says NOTE on it. It's about 2 or 3 pages. Let me see. So people don't normally go back and look at their closing documents after they close, right? That's just not a normal thing that we do. And obviously even the trained professionals probably don't do it. I do it, just because I, a little bit of hoarder, a little bit. I'm always about sentimental values. Not so much a hoarder, but it's like, and I'm busy. I'm like so busy. I'm like, I don't got time. I don't got time to go through this all the time, but I always want to keep things sentimental, but I always know I want to keep that. And I have my loan amortization schedule, and I just cross them off as I knock them off, like, oh, and it's like, man, how, you took a 25-year mortgage, but you only have 8 years left, because I'm knocking down those principals left and right. So anytime you can double up on principal payments, that's so important. So if we can start, I think that's the beauty really of social media, right? The beauty of, having these things are conversations starters, right? Talking to each other, and learning, stuff, how we can be better, right? So if you want a tip, you want to know something about the mortgage business, you want to be better, share this and like this and share it with all your friends and let everyone know in the world. Like, in the United States, at least, we need to be more cognizant of, yes, we agreed to a 30-year term, but it doesn't have to be for the next 30 years. We can double up, triple up, quadruple up on the principal payments and pay this thing off quicker. This not only will help increase our equity, but we'll pay this off quicker. And, and then we have more options. When you have a paid off home, you have more options. There's a lot of different ways you can go. And I'm thinking about the lady, I just got a clear to close on an investor, and we've been fluctuating this loan amount left and right. The first minute it was only going to be 60,000. Next minute it's going to be 80,000. Then it's like, oh, what can I squeeze? Now I want 120,000. Because you have the flexibility of how much money you want to take out, so you can, buy again. And you want to, anytime you take cash out, this is one thing that has kind of changed for me. I do like saving money per month. I do understand that's the mindset. Most people are overextended, and so they need to try to save money. But I am a believer of trying to take money out and make and double in it. How can I 10x it? How can I double it? How can I 3x it? Which is, if I take $120,000 out, how do I make 120 into 360? How do I do that? What's the most economical way? What is a way that I feel comfortable with? We were talking about just how old Earth has been. And it's kind of crazy to me, to some degree, that Earth has been around for what, 2 billion, some crazy amount of years, and we still really have only seen exponential growth through people, stocks, and real estate. And real estate still today is steady Eddie. Most millionaires have real estate. That you really understand the monopoly game, right? Play Monopoly, buying up assets, which are homes, and work your way up to a point where you have enough. And the reality is, when you have investments, even if they're paid off, 3 homes is really not enough. I mean, let's say you were making $1,500, for rent, single family house. Let's say you're doing 1,500, and I know people out there are going to be like, yeah, my rent's 2,000, my rent's 2,500. Okay, I'm just doing something that would the lower you have in a rent payment for a tenant, the higher probability they're going to stick with you. That's kind of the nature of the beast, right? So if I have rent at $3,000 a month, can I find someone to pay $3,000 a month? Yes. There are people that are paying $3,000 a month, $2,700, $2,800 a month in rent. But the probability is they're not going to be long-lasting tenants, right? That they're going to find a way to buy their own house, move out. They're going to look for something cheaper, until the whole market, everyone across the board, is at 3,000. So it's one of those situations where, you have to consider that and understand that concept, that the lower you have in rent, the higher probability that person stays. They're going to be 10 years, 20 years. I mean, because they know that the market does not bear anyone. So it's kind of undercutting the other landlords, so to speak, undercutting them as far as a cost. And if you can find the right tenant there, then you're good. So that's why I use the number of 1,500. But if you had $1,500, 3 properties, and I don't want to say that's only, but that's $4,500. And even if they were all paid off, so $4,500 come to you, you still have real estate taxes, homeowners insurance, and maintenance, maintenance costs. So, it's not a lot of money, just to be honest. I think, right now, the reality is, the average person probably makes about $65,000 a year. And I think most people are, choking and struggling a little bit, even at a 120 to 150 level, depending on how many activities and what your social life looks like. So the reality is, okay, well, I need to be at, if I want to be making 15,000, and let me bust out this calculator, make sure I got these right numbers. 15 times 12, what do we got there? That's about 170, right? My math good? 15 times 12. All right. be confident. 180, excuse me, 180,000. So if you got 15, if you know, it's like, hey, I need to be at 15,000 a month, right? I want to be at 15,000 a month. Then what I need to do is I need to say, if I'm only making $1,500, per single family house, I need to have 10 homes. 10 homes. Now, if I'm making $1,500 a month per home, that's $15,000. Now that's a little bit of chuck and change. Now you're separating yourself. I think so many people want to be investors and then they stop at one property. And I think no, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. I mean, if you're going to get on the train and you want to see it to its full capability, you got to keep going. You can't quit. You can't give up. You got to keep moving forward. There's great opportunities in real estate, but don't stop at one. You gotta be willing to move and shift and bob and weave and figure out a way that's going to work for you. I think a lot of people should also too consider something. I think a lot of people should consider house hacking a little bit more. And it's harder for some because obviously, depending on when you get in the game, when you jump in the pool, but house hacking, appears to me be an effective way where you can become an investor, and one strategy, because there's multiple strategies. One strategy is, hey, I'm going to buy a multi-unit building, right? I'm going to buy a 3 to 4 unit building first. I'm going to live in one of the units in the property, and I'm going to rent out the other, whether it's other 2 or other 3 units. Ideally, a 4-unit building is ideal because normally at that price point on a 4-unit building, 1 unit is basically the cash flow. Meaning, if you were charging, let's just use our $1,500 a month, and you have a 4-unit, so a quadplex. Some people know it as a quadplex. In the Chicagoland area, we call them 4 flats, because each of them have their own unit. But if you're living in one and you're renting out 3 should cover it. So in theory, you'd be living rent free in a 4-unit building. That's when the building is priced well for you. It makes sense, right? So you buy a quadplex, a 4-unit building, and they're paying $1,500 a month. You're making about $4,500 a month. Mortgage, maybe on something like that is about $3,800. Close to $4,000. So you're clearing about $500, which you shouldn't even touch that money, right? You shouldn't even touch it. Cash flow of something probably less than 1,000 should just go straight into the bank for miscellaneous things that pop up. A backed up toilet, thermometer goes out, and you need to get a new paint job, whatever. You just need to stack that money for miscellaneous, but you're living rent free. So if you come out the gates, that should be and you say, hey, I want to kind of get into this real estate, but you see everything around is so expensive. You're like, oh my God. And then you're talking to lenders, right? You're talking to loan officers like myself, and they say, well, how much money do I need to buy this? And they're saying 20%. You're like, holy cow, 20%. I mean, how much time would it take? I mean, if you're going to, let's just say let's say the property is $450,000, right? You got a 4-unit building, $450,000. Well, guess what? That's $90,000. All right, let's do some math here. $90,000, okay, divided by, let's just say, how much money can you save per month? Let's say if you can save $1,000, which is good, right? So that's actually $12,000 a year. So 90 divided by 12, that's 7.5 years. I mean, the thing about humans, right? I mean, if we even go back to just basic humans, we just don't even have it's hard for us to plan things out far in advance. We barely can plan out a day in advance, a week in advance. Now you're talking about planning out 8 years. So many things can change. So many things can go wrong. The longer you have to wait, so many things can be wrong. So it's one of those situations where we have to plan something more realistic. I don't think it's realistic to say, hey, guess what, buddy? I want you to save $1,000 a month and then Don't worry, in 8 years, great news, you'll have $90,000, so you can finally buy a $450,000, multi-unit, and you can do what I'm saying. See, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So you can rent it out. So I think the house hack makes sense because you can actually say, okay, let's go ahead, buy it on FHA, and guess what? We need 3.5%, right? And I'm always double checking my numbers. I mean, that's just a creature of habit. I could probably guesstimate, but I always like to be exact. I think that's just that's just being a Virgo. Anybody out there that's a Virgo, then you understand about being perfectionist. But anyway, 450, right? 450,000. 3.5% is 15,750. So if you're saving that $1,000 a month, you can actually have that in about a month, or excuse me, a year and a half. Year and a half, you have the down payment. Hey, I'm ready to go. You first property you buy a 4-unit. Boom. Get the 4-unit. Now you're rocking and rolling. $450,000 place, 3.5% down. You're living in one, and you're living rent free. Now, a year and a half goes by as you're living there, and you're starting to assess the building, understand, the issues, what's going on, what happens when it's super cold outside, what happens when it's super, when it's super hot outside, how's the water pressure, how's, the gas and the light, bills costs, any issues outside with the area, and once you assess it long enough, after a year and a half, well, guess what? You just replenish the money that you put down on the property, right? Because you didn't have any rent. So you're living rent free. So not only do you have the rent free, of, let's say, you were paying, $2,000 a month in rent. So you have that for a year and a half, right? So 2,000 times 12, that's 24. Tack on another. So you got $36,000. Plus you also recouped, with the rent, you got a little bit of cash flow that you put in. So your payment, let's say, is 3,800. And you got 4,500, so you got $700. 7 times what was it? 7 times 12 is 84. Plus another 6. So that's another. So what was that? We got 15. Let's just say 16 months. 6, Dante. Come on. 18 months times 700 is 12,600. So you got the 12,600. You got the $2,000 rent that you were paying, and now you have 18 months. So that's 36. So now if you're that disciplined person, you see what I just did? 36. Added 36. Oh my God, it didn't save. That's why you still need calculators. You try to do everything on your phone and then it doesn't work for you. And it's like, what's going on? So what is we got? 700 times 18. So we have that plus 36,000, $48,600. $48,600. How nice would that be? In a virtually, it took you a year and a half to buy the property. You bought it, and then it took you another year and a half to accumulate this. Now you're sitting pretty. Now you got a little bit of pocket change. And now you're close to $50,000. All right. In 3 years, you're at $50,000. Now you're okay. Okay. Now you can do something. I appreciate that, Vince. I'll pop that out there. Remember, self-sufficiency tests above 2 units. Yes, on a 3-unit or 4-unit self-sufficiency basically means that the rent has to cover the mortgage. So on FHA, they are going to factor in the rent has to cover the mortgage. So that is correct, but it is a starter idea, right? And the thing, we have so many struggles as just being humans and people because there's so much noise, there's so many different strategies, but all we ask you to do is just pick one, and then we'll help you with that one. There's just so many strategies, so many things we can do. I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, I could do that. But I think as costs go up, becoming a first-time home buyer or using the primary house as the starter, working your way, paying it down as quickly as you can, and then allowing that house to become the next rental for you or your first rental, I think that's really the play that you have to consider. Because the prices continue to go up, that 20% down becomes harder and harder to really accumulate. And how long are you going to wait on your future? Even though anything worth anything takes time. I was going down a rabbit hole probably the last 72 hours of Oz Perlman. Does anybody know who that is? Oz Perlman. He was on 60 Minutes. He's the mentalist, right? America's best mentalist. And this guy is incredible. He's got a great, he feels like he's special beyond this world, but he doesn't want to be arrested and he don't want to be arrested and basically tested all day long. So he just says, I'm not a psychic, I can't predict stuff. I just keep it in my realm. But this guy is amazing. What he's able to figure out. He says he's reading people's bodies, but like he's above this earth. I mean, but one of the things, he just wrote a book called Read My Mind, and he talks about skill sets that he thinks could transfer to any type of business, reading people, understanding people, especially in business. And the point is, this guy is not an overnight succession, even though it feels like it. He put in the 30 years. He put in the 10,000, 40,000 hours to become an expert. He started doing magic, which a mentalist is a version of being a magician. He put that in once. He said he was like 13 years old. Now he's about 43 years old. That's 30 years. I remember listening to Susie Orman, and they're like, oh, she's an overnight success. Now she put in 30 years. I mean, so you see some of these people. I mean, obviously, if you're an athlete, a football guy, basketball guy, yeah, you're going to pop early because, we love watching young kids play sports. I mean, even in basketball, these guys are 25, 26 years old, and we're so critical of them. Oh, that's stupid. How can he be that stupid? He's 25. What were you doing when you were 25? I was not the smartest guy in the world at 25, but we put a lot of pressure on sports, but sports and musicians, those two industries appear to be the two industries that the younger you are, we take a liking to you and we watch you. But for business people, especially when, the majority of people can be in business, right? Anyone can be in business. So the people that rise to the top, so to speak, they've put the 10,000, 20,000, 40,000 hours. They didn't give up. They had a lot of issues to come their way. They moved left and right, and they made it happen. And so I was listening to him and just his perseverance. But, this guy, I never even heard of this guy, but, he's kept working. And he's been on so many different podcasts, so when I go down the rabbit hole, I was so impressed. Like, man, he was on this. I never even heard of these podcasts. I was like, oh, they got a podcast. They got I mean, obviously he made it to Joe Rogan, which is, the pinnacle. But besides that, it was quite amazing just to kind of watch and listen to his story and just how many different platforms this guy has been on. He's been all over the place, and it was motivating, and he's from the state of Michigan, Farmington Hills, I think he said. So let's do some housekeeping notes. This episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, investing, or refinancing, call Epic today at 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now, if you need a book with knowledge that can get you going, strategies, starting to get you concepts of what's out there, this book helps you just ask the right questions. You don't know the questions to ask a loan officer. You don't know what to really ask me. I ask everyone when I talk to them. I get referred, quite often, right? I'm good at what I do, as you guys pretty much know. And they say, Dante, can you call this person? Dante, can you call this person? I call them and I say, hey, is there any questions I can ask you? Answer for you. And most times they have no questions. I just want to get the process started. Okay, great. But there are questions you should be asking. Am I the right choice for you? And I'm confident enough to say I can put my resume out there and say, hey, make sure. But it scares me to some degree, customers, consumers out there. You just trusting everybody just because Maria tells you to call Fred? Fred ain't as good as me. Why did you not ask him? You're trusting people that you've never met in your life with your information, social security number, where you live, where you work, just because Maria said call him. And what if he disappoints? What if he's not good for you? You really have to consider these things. And that's where, I spend the time, I give you the library so you guys can go check it out for yourself. Go to Epic Spotlight on YouTube and you can see all our episodes. You can see our monologues, our podcasts, people that we know, people that we're meeting, and conversations that hopefully will enrich your life and help you. Now, the questions that you should be asking me are all in this book, The Ultimate Mortgage Guide. So if you're looking for a gift to give to someone around the Christmas time, check out my book, The Ultimate Mortgage Guide. And why did you write the book, Dante? Well, honestly, I was getting questions in 2002, and I still get the questions now. And it's like, dang, we have had 20 years of life that has passed by, and I'm still getting the same questions. Obviously, a little mundane for me. I've heard them all before. I can answer them. But it's also like, dang, like there is no educational platform that exists other than word of mouth that goes into the mortgage space on things that you just should know that are available. I didn't know you could do it. I talked to a guy. I didn't know you could do a fix and flip. You could do a fix and flip. You could do renovation loans. Oh, I mean, I think everyone pretty much knows you don't need 20% down, but I don't know that everyone knows just the power and what really truly is out there for everyone. And I want everyone to take advantage. These are great opportunities, but you can't sit still. Sitting still, life will pass you by. I think of a friend, and this happens, and this is real. I have a friend, a sports athlete, and he went overseas to play, and I was here, and we start off at a quote unquote the same level, but then when he comes back, if he's not making moves himself, he comes here and he's at the entry level positions where I've put the years in, I've put the time in, I've put the hours in, and so now I'm kind of up the chart a little bit, and now he has to start at the beginning because he wasn't doing the same things necessary in this space. He was doing it on an athletic space, but athletes, if you're out there listening to me, I'm a former athlete. I get it, but you got to make that money because that money comes very early in your life, but you have to make that money start working for you. Whether that is you're piling all that money and putting it in some type of annuity. I know they talk about Allen Iverson. He can't touch his money until he's 55. He was just putting it all away. So, that way he wouldn't be broke. Or if you're buying real estate, make sure you're buying in the right areas. But if you're buying real estate and building on that, but you have to take the money that you're making from the sports arena and you have to apply it to life, because you come back and if you don't have anything because you were living, high in the hog, now you don't have anything. Now you're broke. And now you have to start at the beginning because you don't have any experience. And then starting at the entry level, the older you get, it's very hard. It's very hard. And it's depressing because you see others and you always, even though you should have the horse blinders on and not compare yourself, we do, right? We're human. We're going to compare ourselves. We're looking over there. We're looking over there and saying, hey, what is this guy doing? Oh, did you see her? Look at where she is. I love Oz Perlman. I think he's amazing. And I'm like, but, it hurt my heart a little bit. I ain't going to lie to know he's 42 years old, maybe 43, younger than me, more success. And I'm like, dang. There's just that in me that's like, dang, what am I not doing? Man, I gotta turn it up. I mean, there's I'm a competitor. I'm a competitive guy, and I'm like, man, hey, kudos. I give him his flowers, but it's like, dang, I gotta turn it up. Or he at least allows me to see there's another way. He reinvented himself, went from a magician to now a mentalist, and reinvented himself, carved a space, carved a niche for him. And that's the thing. Like sometimes we feel like it's such a saturation, but there's opportunity for all of us. All of us, there's opportunity. And you just have to pick what you want to do to be successful. If you want to be in the real estate arena, Epic Mortgage is here for you. Epic Mortgage is here for you if this is what you decide to do. Now, hey, I want to do stocks. I want to buy stocks and do day trading. Hey, this ain't for you. I'm not that guy. All right, there's plenty of them down there. The Wall Street Trapper and Earn Your Leisure. Hey, listen to those guys. They're incredible. They're great. That's not me. But if you want to do real estate, I want to fix and flip. I want to do renovation. I want to buy. I want to get new construction and then sell it. I'm right here, and I can help you. We have the products available. I'm the Swiss Army knife, and there's not too much out there I can't do, and that's why we're here letting you know. Thank you for my rant right there. But hey, after the show, if you're on Facebook, if you're on LinkedIn, make sure you go to YouTube, check out Epic Spotlight. That's our channel. Give this a thumbs up. Make sure I just need to know if this is the type of information that you need to hear, that you want to hear during your lunch break. But check out the most recent episode of Epic Spotlight. It was with Latasha Sanders. Latasha Sanders is an author, entrepreneur, union business agent, and community champion, as she shares her powerful journey from the back of a garbage truck in Chicago to uplifting others through her best-selling children's book, Miracle Mommy on the Big Blue Truck. Discover how Latasha turned adversity into empowerment, embraced her purpose through faith, broke gender barriers, and is now making a difference for women and youth with practical wisdom and spiritual insight. So check out Latasha Sanders. That's our most recent Epic Spotlight. Had a great conversation with her. Really proud of her. I'm just very fortunate to even know her as a person, as a client, and just a beautiful person doing some great things. Now, as you know, we are on my website is www.danteroyster.com. Let me put it in the chat just in case this is your first time here. DanteRoyster.com is where we have our listings. Okay. So if you ever need a listing, preferred listings. So what are preferred listings? Well, preferred listings are listings that I know the listing agent, right? They know me. How nice is that? And so when that pre-approval goes out, the listing agent has to review those pre-approvals with the seller. Now, human nature, right? Relationships, right? They know that when I give a pre-approval, it's the real deal. There's no, I don't know who is, I've never heard of this guy, right? I mean, in our space, we always hear, I've never heard of this company. Who are they? That none of that goes on when they see Dante Royster, they see the golden certificate, they see Epic Mortgage. And so preferred listings means that, hey, you just might, if you put an offer on this property, you might get the answer yes, quicker than maybe a different property that someone doesn't know who I am. So definitely, we're always trying to promote listings on this channel. We want to help, and we're going to next year. I really want to make a goal to get more realtors to come on here and talk about their listings and maybe give us a brief description and a tutorial. So I'm going to really push on that, and I'll get some more realtors on here talking about their listings. But we want to get these properties sold. We want to get you a home. We want to get you pre-approved. So definitely go to our website. It's DanteRoyster.com. I'll put it in the chat right here. Definitely go there, check out them. We have about 14 listings right now, which is good and bad, right? We got to get them sold, but they are moving. Things are moving, and we're updating this list every day as we can. I want you to take a look at 6200 South Marsh Lane in Matson. It's a 4-bed, 2.5 bath, going for $270. Contact L'Oreal Flowers, 312-774-4230. I want you to take a look at 445 West 125th Street, Chicago, Illinois. Sebastian Kupiec, 773-430-8988. That's a 5-bed, 2-bath. I want you to look at 240 North Park in Glenwood, Illinois. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath, going for $240. Contact Jennifer Simmons, 773-494-9476. So there's some great opportunities out there. I want you to take a look at those, and we can make it happen. And we do have some questions today. Appreciate everyone. If you have questions, please. We're solo today, so I'm just doing the best I can. So let's answer some questions. How do you see mortgage rates shifting as we move deeper into 2025? Appreciate that, Adam. I mean, obviously, tomorrow's a big day. We'll get the Fed announcement. Rates have been moving upward this today and yesterday, which would reference that maybe some negative news might come out tomorrow. Maybe not positive. Maybe I am right. I was waving the white flag yesterday, but seeing the movement in the market today, I'm like, man, are they? I think everyone's nervous. Everyone is curious. They're not as confident maybe as they were last week. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out tomorrow. Are we going to get an eighth of a point? Are we getting a quarter, or are we going to get no movement? So economists believe that we're going to get a quarter point change tomorrow. So we're going to see if that actually plays out. We'll know a little bit right after the show tomorrow. Are FHA buyers at a disadvantage with today's bidding wars? Yeah, in certain areas, yes, they are. I mean, unfortunately, I can't lie to you on that. I mean, it's a situation that, in certain areas, listing agents don't, they're allergic when it comes to FHA. They think there's obviously an issue per se with that person. It's a lot of assumption based, which is not right. It's illegal, but you can't prove it. So it does occur. I mean, so, you would have to be very few are going to get approved FHA in Naperville, Plainfield. I mean, there's just certain areas, Glencoe, there's certain areas where you just don't see a lot of FHA there because, there's a lot of people that want to buy there. They're all are conventional. And there's kind of a pecking order, so to speak, right? Cash is always going to be number one, right? If you have cash and you could buy a house, you're the first person that's going to get their offer accepted. Unless you start coming with cash scares me a little bit just because sometimes people can get a little shady in the negotiations. I had a couple situations. One situation that I know about where guy said he's going to pay cash, right? He agreed to cash, and then right at the last minute, maybe a day before closing, says, "Oh, I'm going to pull out if I can't get it for this because this is all that I got." All of a sudden, I don't like that kind of gamemanship that sometimes will take place when people have cash. They sometimes will play games at the last minute, just try to save a couple dollars after they've already agreed on something. That's just not good business for me. But cash is first, obviously. A conventional is second. But contingency buyer is not really sexy. So if you have to sell something to buy, you're going to drop on that list. But third tier generally are government loans. FHA, VA, USDA, those are, underneath conventional and they're underneath cash. That's just how kind of the game goes. What's the smartest move for buyers when prices swing this fast? Really got to jump in. I mean, if you financially can, you got to jump in. I mean, it just, there's nothing right now in the marketplace that, suggests anything is going to get lower anytime soon. So since we don't see any type of lower amounts, we just have to, understand that as of right now, we have to have the expectation that things are going to go up, not down. And so we got to jump in the pool, and we got to learn how to swim and just deal with it. And so that's just what we're going to have to do. Do you think flipping will still stay profitable next year? Yeah. No. Appreciate you, Chris. Like I said, I talk about, right now, nowadays, especially with investors, we're really doing the Burr method, and we're doing, which, potentially means buy and hold it, or you can sell it, and then do it over again. But, for that point, in 2024, June, I helped one of my customers, one of my investors. She took out about $90,000 total. She took about a $90,000 line of credit out on her primary residence. Then she took the money, used that, and bought a property, an investment property. Put the 20% down. She put about $70,000 into a property she found for $130,000. So she was into the property, obviously $200,000. And September, just 3 months ago at this point, she sold the property for $375,000. Now, she was a realtor as well, so she didn't have to pay any commissions, but she made $175,000. This is my client, I tell you. So, I mean, to some degree, if you listen, the echo chambers of the social media, this is the downside. Whatever you want to believe, or where your mentality is, you can find people that will have the same sentiment. So if you believe, oh, this is not the right time, the market's too saturated, prices are too high, you'll never be able to flip any properties, you're wrong. There's still great opportunities out there. You got to kind of put your ear to the ground, nose to the grindstone, all those adages, but there's opportunities. She made $175 in 14 months. I mean, this is not, HGTV, flip this house. This is right here in the Chicagoland area. This was done. 14 months later, check, 175. She was gleaming from ear to ear. So the possibilities are right around you. And you just have to, be ready when the opportunities exist. Are you ready? Do you have your line of credit ready? Do you have, are you ready to move forward? So if you need assistance to make sure you're ready, call me, 708-905-5300. I literally, just got off the phone with someone. I was running. I said, I gotta go do the show. And, but man, she wants to see a line of credit. I got multiple clients that I got to work on as soon as I get off the show today, but that's what it's all about. So yes, I think there's tons of opportunities. Let's see. Powerful insights. Would you recommend FHA over conventional for newbies? Yeah, I think so, David. I know Vince is a big fan of that. It just kind of depends. I mean, obviously, if I got a 700 credit score, I'm probably going to go conventional. It's cheaper PMI, in my personal opinion. And then it doesn't require you to have to refinance because automatically the PMI will fall off. I do understand the concept of going FHA, which allows the case in point, I did a FHA deal last year. Client bought a house, $250,000 in Georgia, and looked at his credit, and he had a couple blips on the radar, and his scores actually have dropped all the way down to 496. But with FHA does not have a credit score requirement. He's still eligible for a refinance, which is super cool. So, I mean, if you have a divorce or a situation that occurs that pops up in your life that can, hurt you potentially, FHA gives you that flexibility to still get the refinance in where conventional wouldn't. But if you're 700 plus, you should go conventional unless, you have a DTI issue and you have to go FHA. But ideally, I'm trying to push people conventional if they can. But if not, we'll do FHA and then we can just flip later. Thanks, Dante. Any red flags we should watch for in lenders' offers? Any red flags we should watch for in lenders' offers? That's a good question, Jack. I appreciate that. I mean, if you're a listing agent, right, Jack, if you're a listing agent, I think, and you offers, well, I guess it depends on who you are. But if you're a listing agent, first thing I thought of was if you're a listing agent, you should be contacting the loan officers and making sure that you're, just having a checklist of questions that you want to ask, that you can ask, and get a feel for, hey, should I accept this offer? If you're talking about you're an investor, and you're saying, hey, is there any red flags we should watch out for in lenders' offers? I just think working with the loan officers who are transparent and really understand the products, because like I said, I have a lot of different lenders to choose from, and in particular, I have this one lender that has some really fantastic products, and they're so unbelievable. They're one of very, if many are actually even doing them. But what's the downside to that? Well, the downside is since they know they're one of few that are actually doing these products, man, it's like Fort Knox to get through there. Underwriting is atrocious. I mean, just really, nitpicking everything. Where do you live? Why does this not have this, and why does this not have that? So, I mean, to do the unthinkable or to do the phenomenal, sometimes you're going to have to jump through the hoops. And I think mentally, you just have to kind of know that. So lenders have products, and you just have to work with your loan officer to get through the door. And so I think that's important to note. What was that? I think we did that one. That's right. Call us and watch the library of information. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm telling them, Vince. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have scenarios, if you have questions, I mean, this is what this platform was for. That we're going to spend, basically 3 hours a week talking to you. Hopefully on your lunch break, or maybe after work, your buddy tells you, "Hey man, check out what this guy was saying. He was talking about house hacking and how he thinks that's a good idea." Definitely check this stuff out. Tell people about this. Let's get some real information, some real strategy. Let's put something together and let's help you. I mean, we can work with, and that's why I'm a broker. We can work with 850 credit scores, or we can work with 500 credit scores. We can work with 496 credit scores. I never, in my wildest dreams, thought I would be closing people with low credit scores, but it's possible now. It's possible. It's game on. So opportunities are out there. We just have to take advantage. Let's see. There could be Just Ford. We will see Just Ford tomorrow. Looking forward to our Wednesday wisdom with Just Ford. Looking forward to that tomorrow. So that'll be interesting. I will see what she's up to. And there could be a truly consumer focused class. Yes, Just Ford. I agree. That's what I think this is all about. We're here. Epic Mortgage is here for you guys. We're licensed in 9 states: Colorado, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Virginia, Maryland, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan. So we are here for you guys. Obviously on the investment side of things, as always, on the investment side, we can actually do investments in about 46 states. So if you are an investor, whether it's Alaska, Nevada, we can help you. We can provide the services that we would do for everyone in those states. On the primary side, we have to stick to the 9 states that we are licensed to do business, and that's what makes us a regional mortgage broker. But we do have the ability to help you, at least get the strategy. And that's why I love my book, The Ultimate Mortgage Guide, because this is information that you can use as a template. And I don't care if you're in the state of Washington, Kansas, Alabama, South Carolina, you can still use this information and ask these questions, and then find the loan officer that, speaks the same language that you do, and make sure you understand. So that's the whole point. That's the whole premise. But thank you. I mean, hours in the books. I do have a busy day. Got a bunch of people I got to call back and crunch some numbers for. So if you have more questions and concerns, you can call me 708-905-5300. We will be back tomorrow with our Michigan loan officer, Just Ford. She'll be in the building. We'll have a conversation and take it from there. All right, guys, have a great day. Thank you for listening, and talk to you tomorrow.